Hey guys and girls, Bored Now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about Free Body Problem Season 1 Episode 7, which is called Only Advance, and Episode 8, which is called Wall Facers. So it is the season finale, full spoilers for the final two episodes of the series. And I'll get into some overall thoughts on these episodes and of the season as a whole, and also talk about whether I think there will be a season 2, whether I want a season 2. I would be up for a season 2, definitely. I think there's been more good than bad with this series for me. It hasn't been perfect, but I've had a good time watching it. It's sort of got this nice happy medium of high concept sci-fi, decent character drama, along with some lighter moments as well. It hasn't been one of these where it's been epic all the way through, or it hasn't been as intense a lot of the time as Game of Thrones, but you have had high stakes moments and tension. But there's been other solid character drama and a few lighter moments as well to bring you down to earth as well. So I think it sort of stands as that, really. Then it's got quite a nice sort of balance in that, and is quite a fun show to watch because of that. But if they did do a season 2, I would be up for it. Now, with this being Netflix and quite an expensive show that is a little bit up in the air, it's sort of in this weird middle place where it seems like there's been enough buzz for the show and quite a lot of people talking about it online, so hopefully that means there's enough interest for a season 2. But like I said, because it is quite a expensive show, the look of it and stuff, some of the effects, then it's possible they might not do a season 2. And I think it's one of those as well where it could be left at one season. It does feel in some ways like the story is complete, and not all the way, because you haven't had the alien invasion at the end of this, and it's 400 years in the future. But it sort of feels like it does settle a lot of the character drama at the end of this, and that it almost leaves it in a place of, okay, they will eventually come in the future, and the ongoing research continues, and the best way to deal with them when they eventually do arrive, and trying to deal with some of the issues in the meantime. So it's one of those where if there isn't a season 2, it's probably not a massive deal. It's not really left on a big cliffhanger or anything like that, but there's definitely more room for stories to be told in this universe. And I know it's based on a trilogy of novels, so they're definitely planning for that. If it wasn't for the very final scene of this series with Lawrence, Sol and Jin, where he's kind of giving them this big speech, and it's almost like back to work type speech, and that's kind of the mood of it, then I would say that maybe they are settling on this maybe being the last episode and just a one season thing. But the sort of mood of that final scene does imply then they want to take this forward and have more seasons. But we'll see how that goes, obviously. Just my feelings overall on the finale, the final two episodes, which I think I'll just cut across them in some ways because it has been a while since I've seen them, and I'll just sum up really the stuff happening with the characters and the main stuff in them. But I would say I'm pretty happy with them. Probably if I have one complaint, it's then you've got this one massive storyline and this one in the second episode of the two, this one really big dramatic tense scene, and then after that it feels like it's a lot of kind of tidying up certain character things and certain plot threads, and it feels like they are slowing down the pace a bit, and maybe setting certain things up for more seasons for a season 2, but and sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating. And I felt that a little bit with the Soul plot in the second episode, where he is summoned to like this government facility. And there's a good cameo from CCH Pounder. I always enjoy seeing her in things, but she's like the representative, and she's telling him, because he's unveiled it at the ceremony with all these unique people who have these unique abilities, and that's where the wall facing title comes from, because that's what they're being called, and it's something related to like the alien invasion years down the line, but he's never really told why, and he keeps saying, I don't belong in this room with these people, like I'm quite low level compared to them, but they keep telling him, no, you're special, you've got a lot to offer us. And a lot of that episode with Soul is them trying to convince him to agree to it, and just their way of trying to convince him and show him the worth. But they never actually tell him in the episode what exactly it is that he's supposed to offer and stuff. So just things like that, I felt a little bit like they were prodding and teasing, but doing it a bit too much, because they're maybe holding stuff back for a season 2. But overall, I think it's a really solid final pair of episodes. So the first big storyline, which is the massive storyline across the 2, I think, is the Will stuff that I'll talk about. So Will and his story, like the whole cancer thing, has grown on me. At first I thought, do we really need this? But it has proven to me why you needed it and why it's important to what the story is doing and stuff. And he's definitely got better for me as a character and more engaging. And the stuff with Jin I really invest in, because what I like about their stuff is that it sold me on them as like they've got this like almost like lifelong friendship, but they are like best friends, and they always have that. And I think a lot of the best relationships, like potential romances anyway, are like that, so I do enjoy that about it. They sort of sell me on that. But so we pick up with Will, and it's revealed that he actually bought that star for Jin, the one he buys at the end of the previous. He paid 19.5 million for a star for Jin, so it's up in the universe and has a name. And she finds out about it. She finds out that someone has brought her a star, but he leaves it anonymous, so she doesn't know most of the time who it is, and Will insists on it being that way. He's also visited by his sister and her husband in this episode when he's in hospital, and again the treatment is getting quite intense because he collapses at one point. And his sister does come off really douchey, because her whole visit is about, like, because you're now dying, essentially, please can you give us your half of mum's money, because we're short of money and we want to start a family, is what it amounts to. I think it's something like she can't have a baby, but she wants a procedure that will help with that. So it's kind of a douchey thing to do, even though you can understand maybe what they're saying, like you're not going to be around in the future. But to actually ask for it out front, I think is like quite douchey. And the sister does come across that way in the scene, and at first Will is being quite like, no, there's no way. And we can see, I think it's revealed he hasn't spoken to his sister in years, but in the end he's like, screw it, what the hell, and agrees to it. And that's part of Will's whole vibe in these final 2 episodes, is it's almost like he wants to leave his mark on the world, like he's going out on his own terms. And that's why he agrees to the whole experiment, because the thing about the probes, and that they need a human being inside the probe, that are going to hopefully set up these rockets, but also to make contact with the alien. They contact Will because it's revealed that, hey, yeah, because they talk about maybe using one of the scientists, but like they're saying things like, well, we're needed here, or none of them's willing to volunteer. So that's the whole tone, is that Wade is looking for someone who has no one left to lose, and he hears about Will and he contacts Will. And Will actually agrees to it. Like he says, sure, I've got nothing left to lose. I want to do something important as I go out. And it's one of these, it's almost like a very selfless sacrifice. Now, it's not 100% sure he's going to die, but there's a pretty good chance. Like, they sort of calculate the science of it. And his friends are all pretty much against it, but they can't talk him out of it. He's sort of very steadfast, and once again, I think the connection to Jin is a big part of that. Like, I think he does want to do this because it's part of her work and everything, and that's what we build up to, really, the big launch and everything. And in the second episode, you've got Jin, who's there, who tragically doesn't get to say bye to Will, and I'll comment on that in a minute because that's quite an interesting moment for Wade. But she misses saying goodbye to him, and her and So are there at the big launch. And once again, the stakes of it, not just in the scene, because the scene is very well done, but the drama around it with Jin, I do like, because she's having more issues with her boyfriend. I like the way she stands up for Will at one point, because the boyfriend, who has kind of been taken in by Wade and believes in the mission, he's been a little bit dismissive of Will and talking about him like he is a bit of a useless object almost. And Jin's like, well, no, that's not right. He's still alive. Like, she gets mad about him talking about Will like he's no longer alive. He is still alive, she points out. So the stuff with that, the drama, how it affects Jin and everything. But you get to this big dramatic launch, and as I said, it's really well done, and it's one of these great, like, tense thriller type moments where in the end something does go wrong. Now, it's not revealed 100% that Will is dead, but there's a chance he might be, because it does go wrong and they're all deflated by the end of it. But it's a great scene, and the fallout is great because of their reactions. But that's when Laura, I keep forgetting it, Clarence, I think, he gives them like the big pickup talk, and yeah, they're deflated, but he gives them like a pickup talk. So I'm going to talk a bit about Wade, because his part in like Jin not seeing Will before the end of it, before he leaves, it's an interesting moment for the Wade character, because he's one of those characters that has also, like, I've really gotten into him the more I've seen him, and I just love the actor because he is very villainous, but he's an entertaining villain. Like, he's very good at, like, the monologuing, and he's got some great lines of dialogue. I really like the speech he gives at one point, because they're testing the possibility of, like, him being cryogenically frozen. And once again, this goes to his ego. Then he wants to be the one who's there in 400 years' time, so he can confront the aliens. So he's saying things like, "I'll be frozen," and then he's saying, "I'll wake up every few years to check out Wimbledon and to see what you like fuck ups are doing," things like that. So he's got some great lines of dialogue, but an interesting moment with him is when he tells Jin that it was Will who paid for the star, and he's got quite a douchey sort of tone to the way he's telling her, and he's sort of shocked. And another thing is that Will at one point goes to London and he's going to tell Jin how he feels, because he's like, screw it, this will be my last chance. But that never quite works out. It's one of these more contrived scenes, but he happens to get there at the exact same moment that she's talking to the boyfriend Raj, and he sees them hugging and he sort of loses his confidence, so he doesn't tell her. In the end, I think Jin definitely knows, but yeah, it's interesting because Wade tells Jin, oh, you didn't know he paid for the star. So she then rushes off to see Will, but it turns out it's too late. He's already gone inside and the launch is going to take place. But why I think that's an interesting moment for Wade is you could read it one or two ways. Because it's at the point where Jin is once again questioning, are they doing the right thing? And she's constantly challenging them on, should we be doing this to Will? So you could read it one or two ways. You could read it as Wade is being a bit of a douche because she's like putting up opposition, and it's just his way of like sort of fucking with her and trying to keep her on side. Or you could read it as he's actually doing a decent thing, like he's doing it to prod her to go and say bye to Will. You could sort of read it like that. But then again, I don't know if he possibly already knows, then it's too late anyway. I'm not sure if he would. He's running the operation, so you could look at it that way. Then he's screwing with her even more because he knows. But there are small signs like that. Then there are like layers to Wade. Like he maybe is a bit more of a human. Like he's not gonna like be a total arsehole, but at the same time he's not gonna come out and like engage with them on a human level. He's just going to have his way of maybe prodding them to do something. So I just thought it was an interesting moment that you could sort of read either way. And in a way, although it's tragic, I don't mind so much that she doesn't get to see Will before he goes off, because they did have that big dramatic goodbye in the last time they saw each other when they visited Will. So in that way I don't mind too much, because it might have lessened that scene if they'd had another big dramatic emotional scene. But that was some pretty interesting stuff. But yeah, the Wade stuff is interesting in the final two episodes, and definitely more often than not he does come off as a villain, and there's some great stuff with him by the end where finally the tables are turned, because he puts the headset on and he starts getting a taste for this thing and they're putting this stuff in motion, and he is going to be the one, like he's cryogenically frozen and he's going to face up to them in 400 years. But they turn the tables on him because once again they're planting these bugs around like the UK, in London I think mostly. But Tatiana at one point is contacted to do some final work. Now one of the things she's contacted for is to kill Lynn, basically. Like they have decided Lynn has outserved her purpose and is more trouble than she's worth. So that's one thing. So she's summoned to do that. And the Lynn stuff I quite like in these two episodes, because she goes to see Sol at one point and she gives him quite a nice speech when they're at the guy's grave. I forget his character's name now, but the guy out of Game of Thrones. But and she gives him sort of a speech about, you know, her motivations and why she feels the work is important and stuff. But the Lynn stuff is quite good in this, because she goes off to the site of the experiments. Originally it's like almost like her dying wish, and she wants to see this where it all started, such a big part of her life. So she arranges it, she goes to see it, and it's almost like someone visiting somewhere like Auschwitz, or like I don't know, just the site of a really traumatic event like a bombing or something. Like, obviously in this case it's not that extreme, but it has a similar vibe where in a way you do have a sort of a morbid curiosity, and also it's a big part of her life. So I like that she chooses to do this, and it's this beautiful like location where you can look over like the rocks, and there's like the seafront and stuff, and it's really beautiful. So it's a poignant sort of end to her character because Tatiana comes along, and Lynn knows that she's there to kill her, and she says, "I'm sorry, it's been a wasted journey," because like she implies she's going to do it herself anyway. But you have this moment between the two of them which is quite nice, because Tatiana says, "I have a much less painful way," and they hug and stuff, and it's implied I think she's going to give her like some drugs which will be like a much less painful way. I'm assuming Lynn was thinking, hey, I'll just throw myself off the cliff, but Tatiana is there, and they actually make it quite a beautiful moment between the two of them. The big thing with Augusta, which is in the first episode, is then she wants to give the research away, the big research that she's been working on, and her boss, played by Aid Edmondson, is being a dick about it and says, hey, we've got you under contract, you have to keep working, the research belongs to us. And he tries to like shoehorn her and blackball her, but in the end it's revealed that she's already set it free, because her whole thing is that this research should be out in the world, people should know about it, we need to be transparent about the thing. And that definitely goes to some of the core ideas of the shows about like kind of shady governments or corporations controlling technology and information. And Augusta is very much like, no, people should know about this. And it's revealed when he tries to shut this down that she's already sent it out online, basically, so he can't really do anything about it, and she just like leaves and quits. And that scene I quite like. It's quite a, what's the word I'm looking for, but it's quite it's a big character. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, but it's quite a big character boost for Augusta. And I think the last we see of her is she's like teaching in Mexico. So with that sort of thing, with her character, it does maybe set up then this could be the end of her story, maybe. Then she feels satisfied, then she's put this information out into the public, and she's quit a job which she had become sort of dissatisfied with, and she's happy now sort of giving her knowledge, teaching people in Mexico. So that feels a little bit like they've settled her storyline and her character for the show. I mean, who knows, she might still pop up again if there is a season 2, but it does feel like that could be quite a fitting way to like end her character story. So the other big thing, I guess, is with Soul in episode 2 especially, and there's some fun stuff and interesting stuff because we've established that he is a little bit of a ladies' man. He does like to play the field, so he sleeps with this girl. He's had a one-night stand with her at the start of an episode, and there's a little gag because he doesn't know her name and she calls him out on this, and I do enjoy them when they're like, I think he's walking her to a cab or something like that, and they're having this whole debate, and because he's had the news on about what's been happening with the experiments, and they're having this theological debate about it and stuff. So it's quite a fun little scene just because it's a one night stand, but because he's had the news on and can't switch herself up, like, she's challenging him on it. But yeah, out of nowhere, like, she gets run over and killed, like, brutally, and it appears as though they were after Wade. And it's at this point where Clarence comes on the scene and rescues Wade, and then and this is when he gets taken to this government base, and he has the meeting with CCH Pounder and the whole, like, ceremony thing. So that stuff I did quite like, and as I said, I got a little bit frustrating and they were teasing certain things, but they're not giving the reveals. But it's still some decent stuff with Wade in the episode where he's constantly questioning, why am I even here? And I do like that he's very steadfast and he's not going to do it, because cynically you think, oh, eventually they're going to talk him into it. And maybe ultimately he will go for it if there is a season 2. I think the vibe of the end suggests that he maybe is going to do whatever they want him to do, but I at least like that he's very tough about it. He's very insistent that, no, I'm not the man you want, and he keeps asking, what is it you want from me, stuff like that. And he walks away at one point, and then there's more drama because he's shot at by someone. And there's quite a good scene later where they bring him the guy who tried to kill him, and once again it's like he's saying things like, well, I was doing God's work. So again, it's playing on that theme. But yeah, I did quite enjoy the storyline with Wade in the final episode, even though at times it was a bit bait and switch, and maybe they could have revealed a little bit more. But I'm going to assume that if there is a season 2, they're holding stuff back for that. But overall, I thought very solid final pair of episodes, and yeah, like I said, I personally would be up for more of this show. So that's Free Body Problem. The final 2 episodes, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. If you want to support me for just a little bit extra a month, you can go to patreon.com/borednow, where you get a bunch of extra perks, including movie and TV commentaries. You also get early access to reviews, and there will be like more specialised content. As I build up the patron tier, there will be more exclusive in the coming months on there. But if you want to support me for as little as $1 a month, it is patreon.com/borednow. Also, if you want to check out other TV reviews on the channel, I'm currently reviewing the final season of Star Trek Discovery, so weekly reviews of that. If you're a fan of Star Trek, if you have an interest in sci-fi, you can check out those reviews. But thanks for listening, guys. Keep watching TV. See you soon.